Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I want to introduce you to George Lee tonight. George Lee is an author. His debut book is Dancing in the River. George, tell me a little bit about yourself and your novel. Why did you write this book?
Thank you, Brian, for having me here. It's my great pleasure. Yes, by way of background, I'm a little bit different. I was born and raised in China, came to Canada to study English about 30 years ago.
Yep.
Now I'm a litigation lawyer based in Vancouver, BC. I came from China. I was brought up and I grew up in a small village on the Yangtze River during the Cultural Revolution in China under Mao's regime.
Right.
It's representative of a stifled free thought regime. The book Dance in the River, in that book, I wanted to tell the story that captured the oppressive atmosphere in a culture during my childhood. And by contrast, I'm here in Canada right now, so I'm also to express the liberating experience when I discovered a new world in China when I studied an English language. Generally, this book is a coming-of-age story about embracing life in China, its ups and downs, how the protagonist pursued his dreams. The name of the protagonist is called Little Bride. Subsequently, Little Bride changed his name into Victor, an English name, when he started English in college.
Is Little Bright you?
This Bride, yes, it's based on my personal experience, largely. The story has turns and twists. When Little Bride studies English, there's a great threat to topple his old traditional mental universe in the culture. So it's like suddenly that he's got a new wings. Little Bride got a new wings when he started English, with opening his mind and vision into the Western world. The little boy, he wants to learn to fly. So that's why he names himself at college an English name of Victor. At the time, he dives into the deep world of English literature. When a story unfolds, Victor's un-Chinese passion threatens to shake up his traditional moral universe. Now he's standing at the edge of the huge personal quest. He's ready to jump into the great unknown, like in the river, to figure out who he was, what his life's meant to be, what his purpose is, etc. He's on a quest.
Sounds fascinating. The title Dancing in the River, what's the story behind it? Does it symbolize something?
Yes. The title itself is metaphorical. It's about the flow of consciousness, of faith and faith, self and others, and a change and resilience. The river is a symbol in Chinese culture. It's about its people, about its history, about its consciousness, livelihood. The Yangtze River symbolized the forces that shaped the Chinese culture, Chinese psyche, and its nationality as well. So the title itself suggests an active engagement with life's ups and downs, turns and twists. It's like streams of life, like a dance. So it's about the protagonist, the little brides, learning to navigate those river currents, so that ultimately the currents leads him to a baptism of a new life.
A baptism of new life.
Yes.
You said that you yourself, as well as your protagonist, and in the book become fascinated with English literature. Why?
I love the English language. I learned English when I was in China, when China opened its door in the 1980s, during the Reform era. At that time, I read simplified versions of English novels like Mark Twain, Hemingway, Charles Dickens, Shakespeare, and other authors, great authors. So when I waded into the currents of this English literature, it was like really diving into an ocean to search for shining pearls. I can still relive this type of experience. At the time, I was so thirsty, and I was hungry as well for new hope. When I turn to every page of the English novel, it's like turning a new life, a ripple of a life in my own life chapter. So I read Charles Dickens. I still remember I read The Great Expectations, and I became friends with the protagonist of Pip, who often whispered to my imagination when I was sleeping. The Charles Dickens' characters, sparked dreams that stretched beyond the cobblestone streets of Victorian England. And of course, I read Mark Twain. Mark Twain left a mark in my brain and my life, in my literary work as well. When I rode on the Yangtze River as a childhood, in my youth at college, my thoughts drifted like hook fins on the Mississippi, searching for freedom on a foggy river. That was my same experience as well.
So, George, you reviewed some incredible English literature, Dickens and Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn and others. How does that experience and your love of English literature and your affiliation and affiliation for the Yangtze River and Chinese culture lead you to becoming a litigation lawyer in Vancouver?
Oh, this is another story, Brian. I came over to Canada about 30 years ago. I studied literature. I obtained a master's degree from the University of Calgary. And then I was thinking of my life here in Canada. It's a beautiful country. I love Canada, but I have to stay here to survive my life here. So and then I switched to I went to law school after studying English literature. I love the language, but I need to live a life here, a better life here. So that's where I switched my career to a litigation lawyer in BC. But the literature, ancient literature, has a powerful impact on my life. I wanted to be a writer. That was a childhood. It was my dream. Now my dream has come true, and I hold my book, as a dream, in my hands right now. So.
And your book has won a major prize, I understand?
Yes, the Guernica Prize.
How does it feel to know people are reading something you wrote that won a major prize?
It is surreal. I spent lots of times and efforts, solitude, tears, sweats, working on this novel. Now, dream became true. Reach so many people, can read this book, get inspiration from my personal experience. It's surreal. It's very rewarding, fulfilling for me as well.
Congratulations. Fantastic. What a great experience and what a great story. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back with George Lee, author of Dancing in the River, in just 2 minutes. Stay with us, everyone. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. My guest tonight is George Lee. He's the author of a book called Dancing in the River. He's an interesting gentleman. He came from Canada. He came from China to Canada a couple decades ago. and got a master's in English at the University of Calgary in English literature, and then decided he wanted to make some money and became a litigation lawyer in Vancouver. And yet his passion, his desire, his dream was always to write a book. And so he's just published a book, and it's already won some awards. And it's his first book, and I think that he's probably going to want to write some more. The book, I understand, combines Eastern and Western philosophies. How did you blend those two perspectives?
Okay, that's a great question, Brian. Yes, I came from the East and I immersed myself as well in the Western culture. I've been here for a very long time right now, about 30 years or so. So my background is itself is an intersection of Eastern and Western philosophies. So I mirror these concepts in my book as well. To be honest, those philosophies, either from Western to West, from West or Eastern, they ask similar questions, but the answers are different. From the West and from the East is different. So in the book, I wanted to show the dialogue between West and the East is not only possible, but necessary for richer understanding of the self, the culture, and the society. Each philosophy offers unique insights into human condition, and their convergence is where the novel finds its heart.
Really, that's interesting. So you're saying that both Eastern and Western cultural philosophies ask similar questions, but they have different answers.
That's correct.
And is this in regards to a major problem that your protagonist has, or how does this come to the fore in the book?
Yes, there's always the struggle between self-identity and the culture definition of one's self. When we was emerging in the culture, it's hard to see the whole picture. But when you're out of the picture, like the travels Victor takes on from the East to West, by reading and studying English literature and a language which broadens the visions of this little boy, but expands his visions and his perspective into the Western atmosphere. By that way, the little bride of Victor can float beyond the conflict and the tension and see the cloud, see the shining sky, see the stars to shining through the cloud. Get understanding that is not a simple understanding of Western tension and was simple understanding of a tension between the West and the East, but you can stand above the tension and see the world beyond that. That is the bridge.
So you say that Victor has this struggle against cultural suppression, and then I think all of us have heard something about Mao's Cultural Revolution. So I think we can have an appreciation for what it must have been. Actually, I don't think I can, but I've read things about what it was like to be in China during the Cultural Revolution. But this idea of fighting against cultural suppression is interesting. But then what you said was that this journey mirrors the quest that many of us have to find our personal identity. How do you do that? Cultural revolution and a fight against cultural suppression. How is that similar to our quest for a personal identity?
Okay, when you were thrown into the culture, you have no choice. But whether you can immerse in the culture in a different situation is another story. We need to find, as a personal human being, we need to find who we are, whether can fit into the culture. But if you want to get out of the culture, you always have a way out. In this situation, Victor, the little bride, finds a way to navigate through the troubles of the water and get a way out of the stifled situation by studying the literature, which broadens his mind and vision into freedom and liberation.
He studies literature, and that's his escape. That's his way out.
And imagination.
Can you read something from the book? Give us a sense of what your writing's like, if you could.
Okay, I'm going to read the last chapter. the last chapter, the concluding chapters are part of it. So it's chapter 36. In Chinese culture, 36, the number itself symbolizes a transition, an exit from one state to another state. So by summarizing, the victor takes a new voyage into the realm of deep introspection. That's where he takes the voyage on the Yangtze River, which flows into the ocean. And there's where he starts to take a new flight to study in Canada. So this chapter has lots of transitional moment for those reflections and introspections. So I'm going to read a couple of pages from the chapter here. So, okay, to me, Grandma was an energetic bird appointed by fate to throw me the true meaning of life. When the night was dark, she had not seen the blackness, but the radiance of the stars. She accepted the whole of her life, a realm beyond joy and sorrow, pleasure and pain, a place where she beheld truth and found freedom. My vision blurring, I gazed at this beautiful soul, who enduring sorrows as though dining at a banquet, who faced torment as though enjoying a companion on a lonely light, who never complained that the night was too dark or too deep, who always held the present in her hands with her 1,000-year-old patience. She knows that as one who experiences life, you create a world inside you, a place where you do not necessarily suffer in the face of pain. She stood in life like the mountains, unmoved by the winds of pain. This is the secret of life that Grandma imparted to me. With tears clouding my eyes, I craned my neck to see if I could find Father in the crowd. No sign of him. This saddened me greatly, but there were no police in sight either. When I had traveled upstream to college, Father had come to see me off here, and it was here that we said goodbye. The new red east sounded its horns impassionedly. Once, twice, I heard the cracking chains clutching its rusty anchor that had dropped into the riverbed. The rising wind was muttering around me. Tide was slapping at the foot of the sluggish pier. My destiny was calling me. I boarded the vessel. On the deck, I bid farewell to my late mother, who slept in the mountains like a baby, in a new world. Now she needed no sun or moon. The earth was her bed, the mountain her pillow, the clouds her blanket. Now she could freely stretch her feet as far as the tail of the river. As the gigantic vessel traveled downstream, passing the half-sided mountain, I looked up, sensing the shadowed wings of the mythic bird. In the back of my mind, I will always call this place my home, my roots. However, when the roots of the tree grow deep in the ground, they are not jealous of the new branches and leaves stretching heavenward. If they do not have the heart to allow the growth of new branches, it means they are rotten at the bottom. Yes, the leaves chase the ground, but that is because they are dead. A young leaf always leans for the sky. Let the dead bury the dead, my heart echoed. In my mind's eye, I could see the faces of my old ancestors, those saints and poets, floating above in the shadows of mountains, and on the rolling waves of the river. I met their tired gazes, looking at me with censure and indignation. But those gazes could not quiet me anymore. Now the winds wrapped me with warm peace. My heart would no longer shiver like a child. As I examined my own being and held my inner self, I saw a new river, a new world where I could swim, smile, and dream, because I'm a new man now. Let's stop here.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Some interesting, I'm not sure whether it's analogy or symbols that you have. The idea that we have to be like a mountain, and that's shows our strength and our resilience. And that was the resilience of your grandmother. I love that. The tree, that's interesting. You're saying that the roots aren't jealous of the branches, the new branches. Why would the roots be jealous of the new branches? Because they're the ones that get to go to Canada, that roam free?
Yes, traditionally in Chinese culture, say, if your roots is here under the earth, you are always here wherever you go, because it's like leaves, you're falling close to the roots of the tree. So that's where I explore this idea to become free of those traditions.
Yeah, because I've always seen the symbolism or the analogy of a tree a little bit differently. I think that it's important to both have roots, and to know where you come from, but that to really flower, to grow, to strive, to prosper, you've got to branch out and you've got to be free. And if you didn't, then you would be a a turnip, a root vegetable. You would stay underground all the time. And but to actually have a flower and to grow, you've got to be wild.
Yes, that's a beautiful explanation of that. Yeah.
So tell me, if you could, you've got this Chinese cultural history and this English literature. What do you hope people get out of your book when they read it?
That's a very good question, Brian. Thank you for asking for that.
What do you want them to get from Victor's story?
Let me think about it here. I think I have prepared some notes here. Give me a minute and let me.
Sorry, what do you think, George, they get? What insights do you want people to get out of Victor's story?
Thanks, Brian, for asking this question. Yes, through the depiction of various characters, I intended to reveal the complexity of human nature, which is beyond the simple dichotomy of good and evil, especially in a time of upheaval and troubles. As the little bride, Victor, the protagonist, navigates through the era of radical transformation, the novel lays bare both good and evil sides of human nature. The readers witness the collisions between tradition and revolution, where ancient customs face the force of authoritarian ideologies, and individuals are often caught in the relentless flow of clashes and class struggles. Let's talk about the Cultural Revolution, the special era in China history. This era serves as a backdrop for exploring how individuals and communities are sculpted by the forces of history, the tensions. Through the protagonist, little Bryce's interactions, we see the interplay of loyalty and betrayal, courage and fear. Those emotions are ironed into the lives of those living through this time of revolution. So this book is intended to be, as I hope, a reminder of the capacity of both greatness and fallibilities within us human beings, within us all, and how those culture storms can reshape our human psyche and human culture. So this is the type of message I wanted to convey.
It's fascinating how you really combined sort of Chinese cultural history and the Cultural Revolution with your love of English literature to create this this story in this book. I find it really quite interesting. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back with George Lee and his book, Dancing in the River, in just 2 minutes. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. My guest tonight is author George Lee, and he's written a book called Dancing in the River. And it's really an interesting interview discussion that we're having, and I look forward to reading the book because it's a combination of some Chinese cultural history, challenged by the suppression during the Cultural Revolution, and the protagonists, Victor, who I think George really is, and his love of English literature, and how it inspires him to leave China to find a new life. George, it seems to me like you probably are Victor, and you've lived through Victor's life, and you've now become a very successful litigation lawyer in Vancouver. You left China. You came to Canada. You learned the English language. You took a degree in English literature. You then went to law school, and you're now a litigation lawyer. My gosh! And now you've realized one of your dreams to write a book and have it published, and it's won an award. Given all that you've accomplished, what lessons have you learned that you want to let us know about?
Okay, it's a long journey, Brian. Started from China, came over 30 years ago to Canada, studied English, went back to law school, became a litigation lawyer now, hold my dream in my hand. I always wanted to be a writer when I was a child because I read lots of books, Chinese books, foreign books with translation. The message to everybody here is here. We are our own masters of fate. Wherever you came from, whatever culture you are in, we have a power, an imagination to shape our own destiny. And we are who we are. We don't have to be controlled by others. We always have a dream to chase. It's never too late to become who you are, especially in this free country. You can do whatever you want to be, you want to do. So never give up, chase your dream. Doesn't matter how old you are.
To dream the impossible dream.
That's correct.
I've loved a couple of different quotes about that, and you are the master of English literature, so you could probably tell me many, many more. But there's this stupid film called A Knight's Tale, and the line that's repeated a few times in it is, "You can change your stars." And the Thatcher that sends his son away to a better life across the ocean, similar to what happened to you, says, "You can change your star." And he comes back, the little boy, when he's a grown man, to meet his father, who's blind, and says, "That little boy changed his stars." And then there's a stupid movie about some people that opened up a zoo, and they say, all you need is 30 seconds of incredible courage. And obviously that famous line about to dream the impossible dream. So I think you're right. And you've been exhibit A in accomplishing it. So thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for moving to Canada, and thank you for writing this book. Is there a part of the book that really speaks to you? Is there a part that really speaks to your heart?
Yes, that's the part I just read it to you, the concluding chapter. That's the spirit I got from my grandma. Grandma is a symbol of a motherland. So I love my motherland, but I love Canada too. There's that's where we talk about the roots and the growth. Um, both of them are part of our life as well. So we love them both, but we have to go beyond good and evil, beyond the dichotomy of tensions, that differences, and find who we are. That's why we're here in Canada.
So when people close your book and walk away, what do you hope they take away? That they can accomplish everything, or that they have to love their motherland, or what is it that you want them to walk away with?
Okay, the central message for this book is we have to go beyond the dichotomy, good and evil. There's a nuance of array of differences, not just a tension, they're just two opposites, but we can bridge a gap of cultures of differences and that become who you are. Grasping both, find harmony. That's where we are in Canada, multicultural.
Find the harmony. What are you working on now, George?
I'm working on another book, a historical novel here, um, um, about Darcy Ireland. So have you heard of that leper colony in the era of gold rush? Some immigrants were marooned on the island as a leper colony. So they struggled there. There are stories, untold stories about their hopes, resilience, the tragic in life. So I wanted to shed some light on that to tell the story about hope and tragedy and change and resilience.
Hope, tragedy, change, and resilience. Sounds fantastic. George Lee, it's been a pleasure getting to know you and hearing your story and hearing about your book. If people want to buy and read Dancing in the River, where can they get that book?
It's on Amazon, some bookstores as well. So
George Lee, litigation lawyer and author from Vancouver. Really appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much.
thank you for having me, Brian.
And author of his prize-winning, award-winning book, Dancing in the River. Sounds like a fascinating read. Stay with us, everyone. We'll be back in 2 with some concluding comments.